Hi, and welcome to TalkRx with Dr. Neha. What do you want to know about communicating effectively with your family, with your friends, with your partner, with your boss, or with your colleagues? This week's question comes from a woman in Florida, and she says, Dr. Neha, I've been in a fight with a friend for a long time. I wanted to reach out to her, but I'm not really sure how to open up the lines of communication again. I was wrong, and I worry that if I say sorry or ask her for her forgiveness, she won't be receptive. What would I do then? Well, I think that's a brave question. And I think it's a good one because I think, first of all of us make mistakes, right? And especially if you haven't talked to someone in a long time, the one thing that's really important is usually after time passes, you start to notice if someone's important to you or not. And if this happened a long time ago and you're still thinking about it, I would venture to guess that this person is important to you. So probably the first place to begin is asking yourself, what does this person mean to me? Why do I value this person? And get really, really clear about why that is. The second thing you're going to want to do is understand in yourself why you took this action that was hurtful to this other person or damaged your relationship. What was going on for you in that time? And what might the impact have been? Put yourself in the other person's shoes. What might the impact have been for that person? Now, it sounds like you haven't spoken to your friend in a long while. So in the gap of time, you've been living your life, but this person has you frozen in time. Where they remember you is when this fight occurred or when this incident occurred. They may have heard some other things about you in the interim through friends or through the grapevine, but for the most part, that's where their experience of you stopped. So you're absolutely right when you say you aren't sure whether this other person is going to be receptive or not. What it sounds like is, at the very least, you're ready to forgive yourself and you're ready to take the bold move of telling this other person that you're sorry and asking for forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is a little bit tricky because a lot of people worry about, what if I say sorry and ask for forgiveness, but the other person doesn't forgive me? Well, I can tell you that I've had experiences like this, and I've actually had them go both ways. I've said sorry and apologized and said, hey, I want to make amends here. And the other person say, wow, I've really missed you. And I want to, I would love to do that too. I've also had the same experience where I've gone in and said, you know what, I'm ready to let bygones be bygones. And I'd really like to connect to you. And I remember a time where one of my friends just got up, or who used to be one of my friends, got up, said, I don't, there's nothing that I could say to you that would ever repair what you have done to me. And it was so surprising to me and it was hurtful. And he stormed out of the tea shop that we were in. Now, what I can tell you that I learned that day about forgiveness is something really important, which is my healing myself and being ready to forgive myself and forgive the situation, because usually the truth is, it's not just that one person does something to someone else, but it's usually that two people in an exchange have had an interaction that usually ends up hurting both of them. So it's usually somewhere in the middle. So if you're showing up and you're saying, I'm ready to acknowledge my part of this and say sorry, sometimes the other person isn't ready. And that's the reality of forgiveness. But the beauty of forgiveness is not for the other person. You're actually doing it for yourself. So I think about it as us wearing a backpack on our backs. And every time I think about that person and that interaction, I throw another invisible brick in that backpack, which is oh, I can't believe that. Oh, I just don't like how I'm not speaking to that person. Oh, I miss that person. And it just weighs me down. Oh, I didn't like how I behaved. I didn't like how I acted. Every time I think of it, it's just this invisible backpack on my back, and I keep throwing these invisible bricks in, and I keep getting heavier and heavier. The moment I'm ready to forgive myself and have that conversation with somebody else, it's like I'm taking off that backpack and I'm ready to set it down and say, I've learned the lesson I needed to learn here, and I'm not going to beat myself up, and I'm not going to carry this around anymore. So forgiveness is actually for yourself. Now, in that incident I talked to you about where my friend, I sat him down and I said, hey, we've really been doing these acts of kindness for each other. I've noticed them, and I'm just wondering if we can make bygones be bygones. Is there anything that you need to tell me? I'm willing to listen. If there's any way that I've hurt you or that we haven't spoken about or anything I need to apologize for, I'm ready to hear it. And when he got up and left and stormed out of that tea house, what I remember learning in that moment was I had taken off that invisible backpack that had been weighing me down for a long time because I really cared about him. It was almost as if he held on to his backpack really tight, he picked up mine too, and he stormed out with both of them. That's his choice. My coming to him and asking him that question doesn't mean he has to be ready. It just means that I'm ready and I'm willing to take the risk to see if he is. So I can't give you any guarantees on how your friend is going to respond, but what I can tell you is I'm really proud of you. You have thought through this. You're taking the brave and courageous step to initiate saying sorry. And how you show up, are you going to be open, curious, and receptive? Or are you going to come in and be guarded and defensive and reactive? So those preparation, those moments in how you respond and react to somebody who's hurt and maybe hasn't thought about this in a long time are really important. So in my book, in chapter 14 on anger, I talk about, in the end, how the antidote to anger is compassion and forgiveness. And I actually take you through some pretty important questions in this book in chapter 14 that will help you get clear on how to go about forgiving yourself as well as forgiving another. Because I know forgiveness can seem like a little bit vague and ambiguous. You are on the right track. So thank you for your question. I hope that was helpful. And thank you for all of you that are listening. Can you think of an incident or a relationship in which forgiveness needs to play a role? If it's true, make sure that you really sit down and think about this. And no matter how it goes, I want you to remember that forgiveness is for the person who's ready to do it. It's actually not for the other person. It's about you surrendering and saying you're ready to learn from this experience, heal from this, and hopefully bridge from your heart to someone else's. So thanks for tuning in, and I am wondering what questions you have that you'd like me to answer. So drop me a tweet at #AskDrNeha, AskDoctorNeha, or come on over to the comments below and let me know what your question is.